Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, that level of douchebag, having to like have them
being that presence.
And then just having them tell you you're a genius.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
What kind of validation is that? Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm your host, Javier Proenza, and today my guest is Josh Vasquez. Where are you from? You grew up over here? How did you get into art? Like, are you part of the group of kids out here that went to Ola?
Yes.
Do you teach at Ola?
No.
Okay. But you, Hearts of Los Angeles?
Heart of Los Angeles, yeah. So I went there when I was born and raised here. I grew up in Pico Union.
Mm-hmm.
I got into art, just, being a kid, doing art stuff. But I went to Ola in high school for a little bit. Also went to art division a little bit after high school, so I was a little older, which is where Emmanuel went and a lot of other folk went. So... So
that yeah. So okay, so then how did you decide you were into art making and whatnot? Are you a painter? What is your main or do you draw? What is your main?
Yeah, I went to school for painting. I went to Cal State Long Beach for painting.
Okay.
And then I got my degree in the program. It's a very technical program, so a lot of oil painting, a lot of drawing from the figure, painting from the figure. I took a lot of sculpture classes. I basically divided my last 2 years at Cal State Long Beach between sculpture and painting, which is a little bit different than most painters at that time going there, where they mostly focused on their painting practice and stuff like that. So I would consider myself a painter, but mostly an artist who's like branches out to other mediums.
Cool, man. So then like I'm sorry, I'm like so fucking rusty on this shit.
It's all right.
Do you got a topic or it's a specific that you want to talk about, or like what are you into, man? Like, how did you grow up? Like, were you like a skater kid? Were you
I wasn't. I kind of dabbled in everything. I was very much like a drifter type. I would just hang out with a bunch of people and see what they're about and just kind of get information, but just kind of like see what everything's about kind of thing.
Okay.
So, I went to Belmont High School, which is in downtown Los Angeles. And then Emmanuel and I went to the same middle school. I think we were at the same time, but he was a different track. So we were...
Wait, so your middle school has tracks?
Yeah. It used to. I think because
magnet program?
What's that?
Is it like a magnet program thing?
No, it's a public school, but because a lot of these schools at that time were overpopulated, basically, it was just like it was like 30 students to a teacher. It was something ridiculous.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I actually don't know where he went to elementary, but he went to Berendo. I went to Berendo, same time, but different track kind of thing. I think he might have, actually, I don't want to. Yeah,
but different track just
means we
you were in different. You never had the same classes together?
Correct. So we had it was also like different times a year. So it's like we might have started in August and ended earlier, and they came in like halfway and then ended earlier.
What kind of crazy shit is LA up to,
well,
bro?
it's just they don't do that anymore because there's more schools now. So,
okay.
Yeah. So back then it was just like we're trying to get as many students as we can because you can't put them anywhere. It was like the beginning of charter schools. Charter schools existed, but now because I guess they were getting more funding, that more charter schools existed. It's the same thing. By the time I graduated middle school, there were like 2 or 3 new high schools that were just newly built. And so when I went to high school, there was like somewhere like 5,500 students to that school.
Whoa.
And by the time I graduated, it was closer to like 1,500.
Yeah.
So it had dramatically, and even between the 1,500, it was different, like slightly different programs. So it was down to 500 students, that kind of thing. So yeah, so I grew up here. We grew up in the same neighborhood, sort of. He was more like Westlake, which is a little bit more west. I'm a little bit like, it's all kind of like Westlake.
So you guys have been homies since like before?
No, well, we all kind of like ran in the same circle. We like overlapped friends, like a lot of artist friends, like kids doing art, and we all like just around the same circles kind of thing. But I didn't meet him until... But
you were an art kid like from the beginning?
No. I was like... I was just kind of running around, like trying to figure myself out like everybody else, you know what I mean?
Then when did that happen?
So I went to, when I was graduating high school, I ended up applying for college. I didn't think I was going to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't planning on it.
What were you thinking, like a trade school?
Yeah, trade school. And I don't know, just try to figure out from there. But I had a teacher who like literally sat me down and said, "Yeah, you're filling out this application. You're doing all this." And he was just like 100% like, he did that for so many students. Wow. And I was like, dude, you're not getting paid for this. You're not properly compensated for this. But he was really looking out for a lot of students.
Yeah, yeah.
And because of him, I got into Cal State Long Beach. And because I didn't think I was going to go to college, I just straight up applied for art school and said, I'm like, all right, let me just give it a shot. Not thinking I was going to get in. So then I got in and I was totally like not prepared for college life at all.
In what sense?
I was just not academically just
inclined?
Prepared.
Okay.
No, just like I was the type of kid that would go to class, understand the material. I would never do the work. I would rely on a lot of the testing, right, to get me through. I'm like, oh yeah, right, I did. I'm doing pretty well on the test, but I just don't want to do the work. So when I got to college, I was like, oh, I actually have to do the work. Like I have to show up.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot. And I was commuting. I was taking the train. I was on my bicycle, like just riding my bike to school every day, taking the train, just doing all that.
So wait, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I am 31. I just turned 31.
31. So you're like a decade and change younger than me. I'm just trying to figure out. So then you were like, the 90s were your middle school years, right? Like you weren't in high school until when?
2006.
2006. Yeah. I'm trying to think of like what my perception of LA was in 2006 because I moved
when
here.
Did you come here? Because
I got here
from
2008.
Miami, right? Oh, okay.
No, 2000. Yeah, 2008. And so like when I got here it was an adjustment because it's like the West Coast and I'm from the East Coast in Miami. Like the ocean was on the other side of the road. So, but it's interesting. I mean, like it's just not like LA is not something that is on people's radar. Really?
In what way?
Like in the way that it is now, where like the politics of like, you know, all these cities that are failing, all these quote unquote liberal cities that are failing, but they're like straight up right wing cities, even though they're in like democratic states.
Yeah, that's funny. That would never cross my mind at that time, right? So it's like so you're trying to like, all right, this is what it was then, and like that.
Yeah, I think it might have been more fun back then. You know, early 2000s, I think we were still naive. We were coming out of the millennium, although 9/11 had happened.
I was just going to say
9/11. That's such a dividing line of all the hope of like pre-millennium.
It's pre-9/11, post-9/11, pre-COVID,
so
post-COVID.
You were born in
92.
92. Oh,
right.
Man. I moved
I
moved to the U.S. in 92. It was post what?
I was born like 4 months after the riots in LA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So which is another marker. You know?
Yeah. And that's like that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to figure out like where you fit into that because I was aware of that shit. Right. But like in the 2000s, it just seems like LA got chill or like the news was like, because I'm from Florida. So like we always catch a bad rep, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, it's nonstop.
Florida man.
Yeah. And I am, And I identify with that because I know what that world is like, you know? Like I know how crazy people, like I know what makes people crazy is the fucking humidity.
Yeah. The heat will get you, man.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice out here. It's like best of the best, I think.
Yeah. All right. So then, like, you weren't like gang banging or anything like that.
No,
that didn't touch you.
Not.
That's the stereotype. I think.
Yeah, it is. And I got, there's a lot of like, you pick up a lot of survival skills. I think where it's just like you learn how to read people, right? You learn how to read like graffiti. You learn how to read like.
What is it? How does the graffiti serve you? It's just a cultural thing.
It marks the territory.
Okay.
So it's just like, all right. Now I'm dealing with these people, and then once I cross this line, this imaginary line, which is the street, I'm dealing with these people.
Okay, so it's like what, Pyrus and...
No, that's more south. The gangs that I dealt with, kind of grew up with, were a lot of MS, 18th Street, Playboys, all those guys.
Oh, guys I've never heard of.
Yeah, well, they're all here.
Their rep is like not. They need branding like the Bloods and the Crips. I think that's the media that does it though.
Well, it's like MS is pretty big, man.
Oh, MS-13?
Yeah, MS-13.
Okay,
yeah,
all right,
yeah.
all right. I thought because you said MS and then you said another number, and I was like, oh, maybe there's like.
He's like, I don't know what
maybe
he's saying
MS
now.
is yeah.
It all blends into one.
Like we had gangs in Florida, but they were like they're not. I mean, like I lived in Kendall, which was like the suburbs, and as I was growing older, like that shit got bigger. Like there were a lot of people come in. I'm sure there was some MS people there too, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably growing at that time. They started in like the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it just kind of blew up. And
where did it start? Do you know?
Where?
Yeah.
I don't know the neighborhood name, but it's basically like.
It started in LA though.
It did, yeah, okay. Yeah, and it's not too far from my high school. So like a lot of that back in the day, that high school housed so many gangs because it was there weren't many high schools, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so a lot of people would get bussed in, so they're from different neighborhoods. But even in that, where the school was, there were like 6 different neighborhoods, just one way, and then another 6 another way, and you're just like, you're putting them in a box. You know, there's so many fights.
Yeah.
All the time. People get mugged all the time. Like, all the time. Just people getting beat on all the time. I'm just like...
My high school was like not as violent, but there were like it was more like jocks versus like goth, like and preppy kids. Yeah. I was like
more like cliques.
yeah, like no gangs. It was like, I mean, you know, there were those schools in Miami like MacArthur and whatnot, but yeah, like there were then like when I first moved to Miami, I started going to a private school that was like for learning disabled kids, and that was like the most degenerate school that I had ever been to, because like all the kids that had learning disabilities but didn't get them addressed were like thug drug kids. And one of the kids from that school, like, who was the first person that smoked me out, we smoked in Epcot Center during grad night, or like during one of those things. I don't know if it was grad night, but yeah, he shot a dude. Oh. And
yeah, man, those are you get a lot of unhinged people, you know, that are like.
And those guys had gone to that shit, or to the tough school, not shitty school. Like, I mean, I'm sure it was not a great education, but
it was like protection in numbers, and I was like, people bullying me. I'm like, I don't want that. Let me join a gang. It's much easier.
Did you get picked on and stuff?
Did I get picked? No, not really. No, I was like,
because you weren't like a white boy.
Yeah, I learned really quickly how to blend in. Yeah, like not make myself a target, but also like not look like a bitch. Yeah. You just like, it's going back to the whole thing of like survival. You really learn, like I said, learn how to read people, learn how to read streets, and it's like, oh, maybe I don't go down that street where there's a bunch of dudes hanging out. I'll take the long way around.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
Not a lot of that happening when I was growing up in my neighborhood. So that's pretty crazy. I mean, but then like
so when I got to college, it was complete culture shock.
Okay.
It was completely different.
You met my people.
Yeah.
Except my people were like all fucking addicted to drugs too, but
it was a whole new world, man. I was just like, Jesus. Like, it took me, I didn't even understand the term culture shock.
Yeah.
I just felt like so different. And like, I was never so self-conscious of myself. It's like, I realized I had an accent. I'm like, where's that accent from? I'm like, what accent? Like, this is how I talk, you know? And it's just like...
And what your accent was what? From a neighborhood or from...
It was just like, I don't know. That's the thing. It's just like, I can't tell.
Yeah,
but it's like, I'm from LA, you know? So it's like...
The only accent out here that I can really hear is the what's it called?
Like the Valley Girl or something?
No, the OC.
Ah.
You know, do you know Serge Wiltron?
Yes.
He's been on the show. Yeah, that dude has... That's like the OC accent. And I say that affectionately. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. I really like that. I went to Mexico with that dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for was it Kipo? Kipo is like an art fair. Yeah. Right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were having a good time, and then as soon as we got back, everything shut down.
Yeah.
But he's cool, man.
Yeah.
I had a great time with him. He was really like warm and welcoming dude.
Yeah, he's like a cuddly teddy bear type, you know, like.
Yeah. Same with like Hagop, man. He's so welcoming and so like generous.
Hagop is welcoming and generous, but he's also there's a little intimidating. Not that not that he flexes that, but like right. Because just his sheer size.
Yeah, I forget sometimes because I just be looking at him like, oh, this dude. This dude he's so nice, man. He's awesome.
Yeah,
but yeah, I was unprepared academically. Mm-hmm. I was going through this culture shock thing, and then like I had a real hard time. Almost dropped out a few times. I just had a really hard time just adjusting to everything.
But was it more the like general workload of like it
was a combination of a lot of things. Yeah, that was one of them.
But did the critique section of it bother you at all, or like the
like
art
for art? No, because it was very like foundational. So we didn't get that deep until later.
Okay.
So it was very like.
So the initial critiques, like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I had done something that they told me not to do, but I was just like, whatever. They told me not to, because I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna get my GEs out of the way because I just want to focus on my art later. Mm-hmm. So I think that might have had something to do with it because I had so many like general, like that kind of like academic workload, and then later, which I think I made the right choice because at the end all I had was studio classes.
Yeah.
It was a lot of workload, but it was a different type of workload, and I was just like completely focused on my art. And at that time I had a few teachers because I took a semester off, and then I took a semester where I was just taking like one class, and some teachers were noticing like, hey, what's going on, you all right, like that kind of thing, like reaching out to me. And I was just like, yeah, you know, I don't know if this whole thing is for me. You know, this whole thing is like, dude, don't worry about it, just keep going, that type of thing. So they really like looked out for me. But
in the end, you're happy you went?
Oh, absolutely.
But are you going to go MFA or not?
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. So, yeah, I had a great time. That's like the senior year and like the year before the senior year, that's when the critiques got funny. Because then at that point, you start making your own work, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like you're not doing models anymore and you got to talk about what you want to talk about. And that was like super interesting.
Yeah.
Especially, so the painting school at that time was very traditional and a lot of like, just like very painter stuff, and it's cool. I'm not knocking it, but I just didn't find it interesting, and I started taking sculpture classes, and it became more conceptually driven.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, this is way more exciting. So how do I like mix the two and like start talking about it? Whereas like I felt I had a more interesting time doing sculpture and interesting conversations and that kind of thing. Painting had that, but it was so rare. Like you kind of had to do it on your own. You could never really do it in your classes, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely do think that like there is it's sort of like photography has its own discipline, right? You can't do certain things with photography. So like I find a lot of the conceptual stuff. I just had so much for it being quieter at my house.
They do that at my studio too.
Oh yeah.
Just straight burnouts.
Yeah. At least I know no one's gonna be playing some copyright restricted music.
Yeah. You're right.
That's the main issue. Yeah. No, and then man, I've had so many really good interviews and just destroyed like by audio. I mean, like I still release it, but I just know it's not like the quality is not there. But anyway, so like. I feel like, yeah, a lot of the conceits and the conceptual things tend to tie towards, there's a lot more flexibility in sculpture because just the fact that you can use ready-mades, right?
Exactly, yeah.
If you're painting an object, you're still painting it.
Exactly.
You know, you're still making it.
You're limited by the medium.
Yeah. Whereas like, yeah, I mean, I definitely, I've been painting a little bit just almost because it gives you the freedom to not have to come up with shit all the time, but that's the balancing
the two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
It's like it's very freeing, but also very limiting.
Yeah. At the same
I enjoy
time.
that.
Yeah, and then like it can also just be tedious to always have to come up with like something as good as your last piece.
Yeah,
like when you're dealing with conceptual work. You know.
I don't know. I don't really think about it in that way. So what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Like something that I'm satisfied with. You know, that I'm as happy. Like I've come up with a bunch of different pieces, and like you don't rank your work. You don't look at it and be like, man, that was the shit.
I'm very what's the word? like I do the thing and I forget about it. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, and I'll come back to it later. Like I'll work really hard on whatever work it is, and then as soon as it's done, I'm like, okay, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, this is what I wanted. Let's keep going.
Are you still sculpting?
Yeah. Less so. Like right now, a lot of my work is painting based.
Painting based.
Yeah.
And what are you like? Are you working with motifs? What's the deal?
Yeah, I guess. What do you mean by motifs?
Like do you have I don't know. I'm like motifs be like what thematically, like what is your subject matter? What are you working on?
Right now I'm working with the idea of just like paradise and what that means, and I think that's been really fruitful for me for like in terms of what does paradise mean, what does paradise look like, and how broad it is, kind of thing. And also the lack thereof is, so I work a lot with like barriers. So the earlier work that I did had a lot of window bars, and that for me kind of started a whole new body of work where I was just like, you're looking at a painting of a landscape obstructed by window bars, that kind of thing.
So like looking out.
The idea of paradise is like the sunset and the palm trees, but then you have this obstruction. So now I'm kind of playing along with that idea. Yeah.
Did you have bars when you were growing up?
I did. Yeah. I'm gonna grab some water.
Yeah, for sure.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's hard to, like, do you have what are the conceptual conceits that you work with when you're dealing with sculpture?
I'm not sure.
Do you have like a methodology? Do you like one of the I mean, it's also very easy to have like a gap between how you work and I work in the dialogue, right? So to format it in a little bit better of a way, like I was doing a lot of stuff that was related to like universal concepts that are accessible to people, instead of like things that are kind of dour, but also about like current, like about identity as like a consumer and things like that, right? Like, are you dealing with something or are you working in a much more intuitive space?
I guess it's not as specific. Whereas it's like, I'm really just digging into this whole idea of paradise and seeing what other ways. It's not
even
so
in
much
sculpture. You're doing the paradise?
Exactly. So it's like I'm thinking of it as a whole body of work type of thing, where I'm like thinking of it as an individual piece, but also in context with the other work. So it's the paradise, but also the obstruction of paradise, or the how basically desire. That kind of thing. Or
do you have like a strong desire for paradise? I mean, because you like, LA could be described as that, but it's also kind of rough. Like,
exactly. It's kind of like a false paradise. Yeah. Where it's like, you could come out here and you could make it, or you figure out that you're on Hollywood Boulevard and it's like the worst thing ever.
No, for sure.
Yeah. So it's definitely that for sure.
Yeah. What do you have like any personal experiences that relate to that? That like because that's such a specific concept, and
right. I think it's more about like it's become a lot about like.
You haven't traveled anywhere cool?
I've traveled, yeah.
So
it's a lot about like, how do I put it? It's like the feeling of being in a certain position, right? And then looking to your next goal, but not being able to reach it for whatever reason. That kind of thing.
Okay.
That's the feeling where I'm coming from, kind of thing. But I'm also trying to express that, where it's just like, you have this thing in front of you that you want. It could be anything. And then you have this thing in front of you, keeping you from it. So it's about this idea of desire and not being able to get it, but maybe I could get it. It's like a motif that I'm working with is like scratchers.
Okay,
like lottery scratchers, where it's just like, you scratch it and he's like, oh, I might get it. And then it's just like playing off of that, where it's just like this feeling of like, I could change my life. If I just had like $30,000, it would solve all my problems.
Yeah.
Right. Which is interesting because it's like, that's not true. even if you did win those, if you won the lottery, you would think it would. I mean, initially
in this neighborhood, which I'm not going to say what neighborhood it is, because I don't want to gentrify the shit out of it. But someone in this neighborhood just won a lottery, like bought the lottery ticket that won like $600,000 some odd dollars. But yeah, that's nothing.
yeah. But it's also like, it's tough because it's like, honestly, like, I'm glad that person won. But if you don't know what to do with it, you're kind of dude, good luck, you know, because it could go either way. And I wish them the best, and I wish that on everybody. But it's also like statistically, that's one of those things. So moving on to that thing, like that idea of thinking, it's like if it's just a little thing, yeah.
But that's an interesting concept too, because if you get rich and all of a sudden you can't relate to your own peers, the people that you live with, that's isolating as fuck.
Yeah, they
need help, and you can't be spread that thin and shit like that. I don't know. What would you do if you won the lottery?
I'm disappearing, man. You won't hear from me. Where's Josh?
Yeah. But
I'm paying. Well, first of all, I'm paying my taxes. You're not coming for me, Uncle Sam.
You heard that.
I'm paying my taxes 100%.
Okay.
And then you won't hear from me, at least for a while. I'll come back and everything's settled.
You'll be all dripping in Gucci.
No, I'm not. I'm not a flashy type. I don't think. Well, I don't have money, so that could be.
You might end up with like the nicest Carhartt and Dickies.
What's it called? The nice. There was like work in progress or something. They got like the higher kind of like the flashier brand where it's like its own specific thing. Yeah, the Carhartt has. Just dripped in that. I was like, yeah.
Oh, so they have like a special subdivision?
Yeah, they do.
That's really cool. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too. But yeah, so then like what any other interesting motifs that tie into that? Because I think that kind of helped me round out what you were talking about with the motif versus the concept, like I guess paradise being inaccessible paradise.
So for sure, like a motif for like the palm trees, the window bars, which I'm kind of steering away from and trying to like dig deeper in what those things are. So now I'm kind of working more into, those street signs, like the band posters, that type of thing, like you see on telephone poles.
Oh yeah.
Where they're advertising stuff. Like I'm using those where it's just like, or where you're looking for jobs, like you need a job, that kind of thing, or like the lawyers, you need a lawyer, that type of thing.
I don't know if job is a paradise, but I get what you were saying.
Yeah. Well, it's like some people don't have jobs, so it's
no. I'm kidding. Yeah,
I get you. But yeah, that's another thing that I'm playing with. For sure.
Yeah, it would definitely be better to have a job than to not have a job. So yeah, I mean that's interesting. I find myself at a little bit at a loss because I obviously had it was almost more what I was going to study rather than like, it was a foregone conclusion that I was going to go to school, and I fucking hated it too. I mean, it seems like you ended up liking it. I didn't like my program that much.
Wait, where'd you go?
Florida International.
Oh, okay. So you went to art school too?
Yeah, I went to art school at a state school. Or I don't know if it's even a state school, but it's I think it may be a private college. It was too cheap to be a private college, so it's probably a state school. But it's mostly focused on engineering. But it's like there was a bunch of people that were bitter that they weren't like bigger kind of thing.
I mean,
I feel like
that everywhere. I think.
Yeah, but I feel like out here at least you're adjacent to some opportunity. I think that like most of the people that teach here have shown more than anyone I know that taught in Miami, and like we were more direct competition.
I see.
For the people. So it was a weird experience. But also generally, like, I grew up in Rome, so the idea of paradise and not having access to it, I grew up in paradise.
Yeah, and you were everywhere.
Yeah.
Because you were in Rome, and then you went to Miami, and then you came here, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, it's been
you
pretty...
speak, you speak Italian?
Yeah, I speak Italian and Spanish.
You speak any of the other languages?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, I'm not that well versed in the Italian anymore. My Spanish is more fluent depending on how much I use it. Like when I was working regularly, and I used to work in Montecito and sell guitars there in Spanish. So, But I like one of the things that's crazy out here is that like the Mexican culture is so different than Cuban culture in general.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, they're both very Catholic and conservative, so that's for sure.
Yeah.
But like, and I always have a bit of a beef with how like right wing everybody thinks Cubans are. I'm like, bro, have you talked to Mexicans?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's like, and then I realized, like, oh, it's the ones that speak Spanish that they can't communicate that are like the right wingers, you know, or I mean, not as that's a gross generality, but I'm just saying, like, there's that like gap, but yeah, so like, I don't know, I like it's funny because to me, LA is a paradise, but you're kind of, it has more of that duality to you because like you I mean, like you said, you learn how to survive here.
Yeah.
I learned how to survive in Miami.
Right.
But survival there was more
it's
about
different.
It was more about like just being around people that did a lot of drugs and like, you know, being cool in those environments. Not like I said, not gangbanging and stuff like that. It was just like drugs, you know.
Yeah.
So that's where my expertise is, and that's why I think of myself as a little bit of a middle class thug.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. But things have changed drastically, I think. I mean, like people like still do gang stuff, but it's not as like in your face as it used to be, for sure.
I think it's more like, I think hip hop probably made it more normalized, right? Like I think when
they just got older, you know.
You don't think people are gangbanging the same way that they used to?
I feel like it's coming back because it never left, right? But I think it's becoming, it's making a comeback because I think the youth is at a certain age. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like there was a while where like graffiti in my neighborhood and adjacent neighborhoods was kind of slow. You know, you'd see it and I'm like, all right, cool, this is your hood, dog.
Yeah.
And then it's not until like the last maybe 5 years where it's like, oh, now people are really beefing. Like you can see it, you know. So it's just like,
how can you tell they're like
they're all like crossed out, you know, and then just leaving messages to each other, and it's like you just yeah, we're just like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
You know. So it's like, yeah, and I think that's my theory where it's just like, oh, they're probably at that age where they're kind of like going to like.
But you sorry, finish what you're saying.
No, it's just like the youth, you know, basically. That's all I'm trying to say.
You don't, so you are you saying that it was like probably worse in like the straight out of Compton era? Like
probably, yeah.
I mean, definitely in Compton, I'm sure, because like those property values are probably insane right now.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I would say it was worse. Yeah, I think yeah. But also, I'm like, I'm not from that generation, so I wouldn't know. But also, from when I talked to like the older people, it seemed like it was way worse.
Yeah. That's crazy. I wonder what happened. Do you think, like, I mean...
Honestly, I think it's like people got tired of killing each other. Like,
you don't think it's the fact that that like black people couldn't hang out with each other in a certain number? Like what are those laws called? They're the...
I'm not sure. I know what you're talking about. I don't know what it's called.
They're like, I mean, it wasn't just black people. It was Mexicans too.
Right,
but like...
you couldn't congregate more than 4 people.
Yeah. And that, like, so you do... I wonder if that had an impact on it too.
Maybe. But I don't think so. I think it's... But also, it's like every neighborhood is different. They're all the same, but they're all different. That's just my theory.
My question is always like, where the fuck were all those Uzis and shit coming from? Like, you know, in the 90s, like it's not like it's not like somebody
Russia, right?
Really? Do you think is that?
Probably. I mean, it was what
AK-47s, yeah, probably.
Because it was what the 90s was what the Cold War. Like after where it's like the wall came down, right?
Yeah.
The 90s, and then the Russians, probably like the Soviet Union, right? It fell, whatever, and so they gotta make money, dog. Yeah. Like let's sell some fucking guns.
Sorry to ask you about all this stuff because I know you're not about that life, but you grew up around it. You know, like
that's also speculation. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, what was your childhood actually like? Like, what were you what was LA like in 2006? Like as to be a kid, because I can't imagine what it's like to right now. Like you're a kid right now. Imagine there's all these people on the streets.
Yeah.
You know, and like that is like, and then how do you explain that to your kid, and how does you internalize that? But like 2006 is different, right?
It was, yeah.
So like, was it more fun? Was it more hopeful? Like, it sounds like there was a lull in violence.
Yeah. I think it's like I said, I think it was because everything was spread out and less concentrated that things started kind of cooling down, you know. But
do you think that people felt weird after the riots, like that you burned shit down and then you don't have anything left?
I think I was too young, but yeah, I think
I'm just quoting stuff I heard on live TV.
Maybe, I'm not sure. I think it's very like, yeah, it was a different time. Yeah, I couldn't say, but I don't know. I was also very sheltered. Like, it wasn't until like I was maybe in like 8th grade, which is the end of middle school, where I started kind of like going out by myself and like exploring, that kind of thing.
8th grade, that's still pretty. How old are you in 8th grade? That's like 14, 13?
13 probably. Yeah.
I mean, in LA, shit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let like my 13-year-old do that now.
No. Well, I feel I honestly would feel better. Well, maybe not now, but we'll see. I don't know. I think it teaches you a lot of, like, it's one of those things where it's just like sink or swim. It's kind of messed up, but it's like,
yeah, but sometimes you sink in a fucking river.
Yeah, and then at that point he's gonna be, all right, you can't do that. Let's come home. Like, you gotta, like, yeah.
So, all right, did you grow up like crazy Catholic? What, like, how were you sheltered?
Yeah, I grew up Pentecostal Christian.
Pentecostal Christian from Mexico. Is that like
from El Salvador?
From El Salvador? No wonder, you motherfucker.
Yeah, my parents are from El Salvador.
From what part?
San Salvador.
That's pretty a fun history.
Yeah. It depends on how you ask. It was all right. Well, the thing is too, it's just like you get older and then you like time gives you perspective. Whereas it's like, oh, I thought this was like normal, and then you're like, nah, dude, this wasn't normal. Like, yeah, I was like, oh, all right.
But did you ever spend any time there, or you were born out here?
I was born and raised here. Yeah, I spent like I think I did like I went there twice when I was younger and just like visiting, and it's totally different now. I haven't been since, but because of the new president and stuff, everything's like super different.
Bro.
Yeah. I'm like skeptical, dude. I'm so skeptical.
I don't know what
but people are saying it's amazing. So I'm like, oh no.
I'm not buying it. Dude.
I don't know. It's a lot of propaganda.
That's like what's happening in Haiti, dude. Have you seen that shit?
No, I haven't.
They're burning like they're burning the gang members that are like terrorizing the city. Like, they just fucking busted somebody. The cops bounced, and then like people came with gasoline. Like, the cop arrested them, disarmed them, walked away, and like that's
just left them there.
Yeah, wow. I don't know, man. Like, that's what happens with that like American neoliberal brush. You paint and weird shit happens. I hear Ku and Niger, and I'm like, oh my god, I gotta do so much reading to even know what the fuck is going on there. And first of all, you have to find sources you trust on that, because not every source has experience with a fucking region, Right. But they
stopped importing gold, right?
Huh?
You talking about Niger?
They start what?
They stopped importing gold to France or something like that recently?
I don't know. Well, there's a military coup there. I just don't.
Currently?
Yeah. I just
explains.
Yeah, but I don't know who's when I hear coup, I'm like, what do we do? What do we do?
Yeah.
This
one stopped recording.
Oh, okay. Shit.
Yeah. It's always fun talking to other artists, because then you realize like, oh, I'm not that kind of artist.
No, yeah. Doing this podcast made me realize my preconceived notions of what an artist constitutes an artist. Like, I used to think artists were like rebellious and like aware of politics, and I'm so fucking wrong. They're like the most conforming, like fascistic group of people, telling people that they should lose their jobs.
Yeah, like, dude. Which I think this is a good segue into like my thesis that I wanted to talk about was.
That's what I was trying to ask you about, man.
I was thinking about unsolicited advice to younger artists.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm fucking guilty about that. I mean, I look at the camera and do it.
But I think it's good. I think, I don't know. I think I like to frame it as like, what do I wish somebody told me coming out of undergrad?
Oh, you're pro unsolicited advice.
No, not at all. But I think because I have this platform there, let me just throw it out into the ether. And it's like, pick up what you want, you know? And it's like you were talking about this whole, like, give up your job. I'm like, no, don't do that. Just like...
Oh, wait. In what context did I say
that? Well, you're saying, like, there's people that would be like, yeah, give up your job so you can follow your dream to become an artist. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, don't do that.
No.
Don't do that. Like, don't kill yourself for your art. It's just not... For me... Look, I love making art. I love being an artist, but it's also like I gotta eat.
Yeah.
And I feel like some people really fall into that romanticization of like art making. I'm just like, don't do that.
Yeah, if I could give some unsolicited advice to artists,
Yeah.
is learn about fucking investing, man. Like, there's nothing that's gonna be better for you to, like, because you can be a grunt your entire fucking life.
Yeah.
And never gain anything.
Yeah.
Like,
speaking of, I listened to the episode with, was it Chris Adler?
Yeah, that's old school. Damn, you're going in the archives, man. Yeah, you're my new favorite person.
Yeah, I was listening. I was like, because his thesis was personal finance, and I was just like, oh, I'm into personal finance. I like doing that. And then one thing I would say, he gives. Obviously, this is not financial advice.
This is not financial advice.
But he gives pretty good advice. It's pretty general and it's pretty like safe.
It's not that difficult. It's mystified because only rich people really do it. But it's really not. Like, no. Yeah, you can do okay.
I learned it because during the pandemic, I was just like, I need to figure out my life. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know anything. Like, I really had to humble myself in like many different ways, and that was one of them. It's like, oh, I don't know how to use a credit card.
Oh yeah,
let me figure that out. Yeah, but I was gonna say he gives pretty good advice. One thing, because he said like, pay off your debt before you do anything else, and I was gonna say do both.
Yeah.
Just save money, pay off your credit cards, and invest. Just balance it out. Obviously, the first thing you want to do is get rid of your debt. Yeah. But
the other thing that I would say is that don't trust the dollar anymore, because I don't know if
it's a new world.
I don't know if you are aware of what's happening in the world, viewer, but I figure as someone from El Salvador, you probably have a broader scope of international affairs, right? Like BRICS and all of that shit. Like everybody's leaving the dollar. We used to invade countries to stop them from doing what everybody's doing now.
Who just switched to the yen?
Yeah. Oh, Saudi Arabia is purchasing oil. Like
what's the Chinese dollar? Is it yen or yuan?
Yuan, yeah.
But there's also like a Latin American country, like a big Latin American country that switched to, and everybody's like, oh, the U.S. Yeah, and I was like, oh, dude, this is big.
Yeah. India, Russia, and like everybody's ganging up on the dollar. So I would say this is not financial advice, but learn about real estate, because honestly, with shit that's going on,
that's an asset too. Yeah.
That is an asset that's not dependent on the strength of the dollar, because the dollar is no longer going to be the reserve currency of the world.
Yeah.
And so
you said that in that podcast.
Oh yeah. But it's like it's happening like in a year.
Well, here's the thing: it's just like you were talking about it in that episode. And now we're like living it. We're just like you're saying exactly what
Yeah. I mean, the world is only going in one direction. And if you learn about it, it's really fucking predictable.
Yeah, especially if you look at it from that lens where you're like really zooming, where it's like not USA centric, where it's not America centric.
The world is done. Look, we don't even have good propaganda anymore. Like our whole Hollywood is trash and no one likes it. Yeah. It's all like superhero movies.
When stuff happens like that, I'm just like, I know it's kind of like far-fetched, but it's really not. I'm thinking like just spies, you know what I mean? Like people in the industry are like, hey, like bending people's ears and try to break down like certain things, just like propaganda, just like
that like after like because there was that period where all the Vietnam movies were coming out.
No,
I mean, you wouldn't remember it, but it would be like Hamburger Hill, all these movies. What's the one? Platoon.
Oh yeah.
Heart of Darkness. That's the other one. What's the Apocalypse Now?
Are you talking about like just Vietnam era type films?
Yeah, films about that were anti-war and anti-CIA, and that doesn't. They don't make that anymore.
No.
I wonder how that happened.
Yeah.
I wonder how just casually film stuff
just fell off. Yeah, it makes me think of like Forrest Gump, where it's just like it was this certain era, but they just kind of like brushed it off, coming this way. But I think like that's very good advice. And to like further that is like diversify your portfolio. But first of all, save money, right? And then learn to invest and that kind of stuff.
And like seriously, you can do it on a working class job. Like you don't have to be making. In fact, it's almost nowadays with what it costs to go to fucking school. Mm-hmm. Like it's almost better to do it. It's like you because you don't start off with like $150,000+ worth of debt, and then you can just like put money away and watch it grow.
Yeah. And this is where I'm going back to like the people I'm trying to reach is like younger, right? Like, look, the younger you are, the more you invest when you're younger. You can invest less as you get older, but the numbers, like it's more of a time issue than a money issue. Like the more money, the earlier you start, the more you have long term. But nobody thinks that way. Right? So it's like, it's not to say don't start now. It's more of like, I wish I could. Somebody told me this when I was 21. I'd be rolling.
My thing is, I wish I had continued as aggressively as I did when I was younger, because now I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah,
and like I started off good.
Really. Yeah. And it's not intuitive. That's the problem.
Can we go back to advice for young people though? Like, what's for young artists? What is the shittiest advice anyone's ever given you?
Given me
as an artist?
Ooh, that's a good question. What is the shittiest advice? I think any advice that says don't do something. You know what I mean? No, but it's one of those things. I think, in terms of painting, where they told me not to do something, it's like that's not very good advice. Like if you're painting a certain way, and let's say you're painting. I'm thinking about it a specific instance where like I was painting abstractly, and then they told me, "Yeah, don't do that. It's been done already." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's fair."
Yeah.
But I just don't care. Like it's just like I'm exploring things. Like I'm a new student. Like how are you gonna tell me that? Like a better advice would be like, "Hey, look at these artists, right, and see what they're doing. What can you take from that, right?" It's It's like two sides of the same coin kind of thing. It's just like.
Yeah, I think that one is a weird one too, because like I've seen people say like don't take pictures of wall in photography class walls because it's like it's been done so much. Yeah. And I've also heard the thing of like, well, you get to take your picture of a wall, right? So
and it's not like the thing is too is it's like not every piece is gonna be a banger.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You're still like learning. Especially at that age, you're just like young in your artistic mind. You don't have the breadth of knowledge. You have just time and experience. So just do the thing, and then just do more of it. Do a lot of it, and then you realize like, this is not good. Yeah. But you have to realize that as a younger person, then you're like, I don't want to do that.
No, yeah.
So it's less about, it's less about discouragement and more about like. Veering, like tugging people like a certain direction, because like stopping somebody from doing something is not going to help them, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Well, are you still doing abstraction sometimes or not?
Less so, but yeah.
I mean, isn't all painting an abstraction?
I say that shit all the time. Aren't all words made up?
Touche. That's actually you made me think there. Yeah, man. No, I find like the conversations about art that are highfalutin are worthwhile and stuff.
Sure.
But and they're great. But I think most of the time, like most people's experience of art is not like even people that are like really into it and read Hyperallergic and all of that. Ultimately, there's an intuitive element of it. I would hope so. Like I also find Hyperallergic, not everything that they do, but like their Instagram is so fucking annoying to me.
I don't follow them. I wouldn't know.
I thought I wasn't following them, but I was, and then I got really annoyed
because I was the rabbit hole.
Well, no, because I thought it was like just kept showing up in my suggested, but I was like, but I was actually following them, and then I just realized I just thought that I had unfollowed them. But yeah, there's like I don't know. I find what do you think about like one of the things that I thought was interesting is that clip that I started Rashid Buhamadi's episode in it, because I think like when you're young, you kind of want to still be like fight the system in some degree, but like to some level, like you're conforming even more the more successful you get, and the higher price you command.
Well, it's like when you're younger, you have less to lose. You get older, you got more to lose. I gotta like that's why I like a lot of, and it's pretty like apparent a lot of careers go that way where you look at somebody, they're like, why are you painting the same thing still?
Yeah.
It's like, that's what they want.
Yeah.
I got a studio to fund. I got assistants now. I got to make the people what they want.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, you're not the problem. The system's the problem, right? That's what it is.
Yeah, but it's also so like did you have that moment where you kind of went from like the naivete?
I did, yeah.
And then you're like, oh shit, I'm like,
yeah, it's deeper. I did, and it's very like it's very enlightening. I gotta say,
yeah,
I'm like,
was it liberating?
It
too?
was.
Okay,
it was incredibly liberating because it's like, oh, I don't have to. There's such a bigger world out there, guys. Like, this is like, some people really, and this is not to knock on anybody, because it's like, art is some people's life, you know? But I think what I learned was, if you tie your identity to this one thing, what happens when that one thing is taken away?
Yeah.
That's what it was for me. Where it's just like, what if I'm not allowed to paint anymore? Who am I? You know?
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh man. It's enlightening, but it's also like burdening, because you're like, you really got to do some introspection, you know? And that's what it was for me. And it was just like, then I came back and started making work again, and you're just like, it's a different mindset. You know, I'm much happier.
So where did you end up? Like, what's your ambition? Are you trying to like end up in Hauser and Wirth and that kind of thing?
I mean, it'd be cool, but it's like, I think life has so much more to offer.
Yeah,
I think. You know?
Yeah, no, yeah, and it's almost like not even just making the work that you want. Like, I can't imagine just having to like rub elbows with people that are like, you know, like assuming. I mean, I know that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are not patrons of the arts to the extent that, you know,
they got advisors.
They got, you know, but I'm just saying, like, they're not known for that. But I'm just saying, like, the equivalent of that level of douchebag, having to, like, have them.
Being that presence.
And then just having them tell you you're a genius. Like,
yeah, I don't know, man.
What kind of validation is that?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, man. It was just like, and that kind of ties back into my work, where it's just like the idea of validation is like, validation is not that different from paradise, right? Where it's just like you're reaching for this paradise, you're reaching for this validation. What happens if you don't get it?
Yeah.
What happens to your life? You know, what happens to your philosophies? So it's just like, you gotta think of things in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I think that's what like my work is about. You know?
Yeah. It just, I mean, it's horrifying, the idea of being that successful. You know, like, I look at, and then like, what happens to your politics? You know, like when you get that rich and you are part of that machine, and you're like, I don't know. It would be kind of nice to have someone really rich love your work, right?
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, look, I'm not against like people buying my work, you know what I mean? But it's also like, I'm really not trying to rely on it either. I'm like,
yeah.
It would be fucking awesome if I was at Hauser or Wirth or like Blum and Poe or something, and they're just selling my work for a lot of money, and I could just focus on that. But when you look at it logically and statistically, the chances are really like not that high.
Oh yeah, and
so you're just like. So you, as a person, as an artist, just gambling on this thing that you really love, and then what happens if you don't get it? That's the whole thing, you know? So
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't even really know how to like hustle that like, I haven't even really tried to show anywhere, you know, like in years. I mean, definitely since COVID, but like, it's also not even like part of my priority, but. Not because I don't want to show, or not because I don't want to be at Hauser and Wirth. Mostly, first of all, mostly because I'm barely getting to the level of like even understanding how like mid-tier galleries, like, you know, like I wouldn't know. I know the gap between like artist run and mid-tier. You know, like that's the realm where I've like kind of leveled up, because I was relatively obscure. Nobody knew who I was. I didn't really know anyone. But as someone who's like interviewing, is at episode 185, I can tell you with great confidence, I'm not running out of people to interview. Like, There's no end to the amount of artists that are on the surface of this earth. In fact, my dad asked me that one time. I was like, oh, like it's almost overwhelming, the idea of interviewing every single artist.
Yeah.
You know, but it's validating in the sense that like, first of all, like just the fact that I'm doing the show it's an element of like, I have the authority to do it, you know, like I'm claiming the authority to do it, despite not having an MFA and all of that shit.
Right.
And like, and so it's just interesting how different people seek out, you know, to it. Like, success as an artist is not necessarily defined equally through everybody's eyes. Correct. Right? Correct. Like I know people that would hate. I mean, I would love to be at Hauser and Wirth and make millions, but I know people that would hate it, you know, and I believe them. Yeah. Yeah. I have no soul, but
I think at the crux of like my thesis that I wanted to say is like, look, there's 1,000 ways to peel a potato. Yeah. You can do it any which way you want.
There's really 1,000 ways to peel a potato.
There's more than 1,000 ways.
Really? Yeah. Damn, son. I've never peeled a potato once.
You gotta, use your imagination, man.
I was just chopping. I'm like, fuck
skin peeling. On, fuck yeah, exactly. No peeling at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no wrong way to do it. Like it's that there's no wrong way to do it, and it's also like you have to define your own success. Yeah. Because some people will want to be an artist, and then have no sense of direction, like no real like goal, and be like, well, you kind of gotta have that, right? And you can't have that goal be so high that like you can't reach. I mean, it could, you know, I'm not encouraging or discouraging anybody from trying to reach their goals, but it's more of like, success is defined by yourself and not other people. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
And it's also like if you try to shoot for the moon right away, you're like let's say you know, like let's say I want to start investing, you're not going to be a fucking millionaire on your first, you know, like it actually takes time. It takes time for that money to grow and whatnot. So it's interesting. What's your great ambition? Like, let's say, I know I hate the term 5-year plan, but it is how successful people think.
Yeah. Honestly, I'd like to be teaching.
You want to be teaching?
I want to be a professor.
So MFA?
Yeah.
And then,
because I think it's like, back to the thesis, it's like, you know, that's really what I want to do. I want to reach younger people of color, and kind of like, because when I was in college, I really wish I had somebody that looked like me. Because I was getting advice from people who were like in their 50s and 60s, white, male, woman, whatever. Like, there's a huge disconnect, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, just talk like, if you listen to this conversation, look where I grew up, you know? What does a person from, I don't know, like Ohio, like, know? You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know how you grew up. Like, that's literally the thesis of the podcast is that, like, I grew up in a different space, and I think of myself as tough and as a bit of a Latino thug, but like, it's nothing like, it's a different environment, you know? Like, the challenges are different.
Yeah, but it's also like, if you had somebody that looked like you and had like similar experiences, you'd be like,
they would be Arabic. No.
But you would be more inclined to learn and more inclined to like take advice.
No, and I mean, definitely. Like, I just saw a clip of out of context. I don't even know what movie Denzel Washington was talking about, but he was saying, like, someone asked him, does it have to be, have you seen the clip? Does it have to be a black director? And then he talks about like a hot comb.
Yeah, you know how that feels.
Yeah, you know how that feels. And then he talks about how he goes and everybody laughs, and he's like, you see that? Like,
that is cultural,
like that's culture. Yeah, and I think that is an interesting thing. And I think that even though among Latinos there's overlap and camaraderie, like I know about your history, like as opposed to like I can't say the G word.
The G word?
Yeah, the Ingo.
I don't know what it is.
The slur for white people.
Oh. I've never heard that.
You never heard?
Oh, Ingo. I heard Ingo. I'm like, what?
No,
Ingo.
Now I have to beep it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whoops. Well, no. So yeah. Like, I think.
Is that a slur?
On YouTube it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. The great YouTube.
I mean, I
didn't know that, actually.
I had a queer person on the show saying the F word, and I'm going to just bleep it out because I don't know if the context matters. Like, if you are a person of like, I think that I've seen, like, anyway, we're off topic.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
So like, I think that one of the things that, first of all, we have like a language that's like, do you speak Spanish?
I do, yeah. I'm not great at it, but yeah.
But there's that kind of ties people together. But even among us, like, one of the things that we love to do is like point out our differences and like mock each other.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I mean, like, growing up, it's like I grew up with a lot of Mexican people, and they'd be like, "How do you say this?" And it's like, because I say it was like a straw is popote.
Yeah.
And Salvadorian is pajilla.
Pajilla.
Yeah, and you're just like,
and it's not that.
It's not that. It's just like, what are you saying?
Yeah, Cubans say bicho, and in Puerto Rico, that's like it's a very crude word.
Bicho is
like vagina.
I didn't know that.
It's the P word, but like
yeah.
But because you're calling it a bug, it's a little grosser.
And I could be messing this up. I think Guatemala is like a little fly, like a bicho.
Yeah.
And then what'd you say? Cuban?
No, we say in Cuba in Cubans we also call them bichos, but I think someone.
But it's kids. Yeah, right. Like bichos?
No. Bichos are bugs.
Rah.
But bichos are also the P word.
Oh. See, for bicho is also like, for us is like little kid. But it's also like cipote.
Cipote, yeah.
Bicho.
For
cipote.
us it's chamaco.
Chamaco. See? The slightly different thing. It's
yeah. So, it's a crazy thing. And like, but one of the things that I think that ties us all together, like a beautiful Latino family, is the oppression of the American government.
Uncle Sam, you know?
Yeah, and it's so funny because like I think I mentioned it before, but like the American history that is not known by Americans is so dense,
staggering,
and that's why people like us know what happens in Haiti and knows what happens everywhere. Like because we're like, oh, I've seen that before. That shit. That shit.
That sounded real familiar.
Yeah.
Got a hint of USA.
Yeah, man. Damn, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's people like Elliot Abrams, who's responsible for El Mozote, who's like deep state. He's basically he's do you know what El Mozote is?
No, but
I maybe shouldn't tell you about it because it's pretty brutal. But it's one of the Iran-Contra massacres of people.
Okay. Yeah.
800 people were murdered. It was pretty brutal. It was like but yeah, man, like, you know, and then Cubans, we got that shit in common. We've been starved. There's no Cuban food in Cuba. Right. Like, there's no Cuban cuisine anymore because people can't like afford staples.
They can't make it.
They can't. There's no like black beans.
You have like three ingredients or something, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Beans, rice, and chicken or something.
Yeah, or it's beans, rice, and pork are like the main staples of our stuff, but you can't like find that at a restaurant anymore. My sister just went. It's crazy. So, and then like you guys have that gang shit that's going down, that gang crackdown, bro. That shit looks brutal.
American made.
Yeah.
It started here. It went over there, and then it just blew up, and then it went everywhere in the U.S. because people going back and forth, and now it's everywhere. So this is like, but now they're doing that crackdown, put everybody in jail. Everybody.
It's brutal. It's crazy, and people seem to be happy with it, but again, it's like that.
At what cost, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like if you put people in bad situations, they'll be happy if they improve just a little bit. You know?
How much are you really moving the bar here?
Yeah. It's a really crazy thing. But anyway, yeah, that's that. Do you know that guy Rafa, the guy that does Dancing Sober podcast?
Yeah, Cardenas.
Yeah. I'm interested in talking to him because he's probably talked to a lot of Latinos about a lot of this shit. Because that's basically
like off the podcast or like
no, on the podcast.
Oh, really?
Or I mean, doesn't he just mostly interview Latinos?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think it's more of their like personal journey. So I don't know if it becomes that, you know,
if that comes up.
Yeah, I don't think it does,
bro. That shit's inbred.
Like the episodes I've seen, it doesn't really go. It's more of like, how did you grow up, or how did you get into art, and like, your art, that type of thing.
So it is an art podcast?
It's more of like a life story, like how did you come up type of podcast, whereas it's like he literally goes like, how was your childhood, and like what was college like or whatever, how did you get into art, and how did you get into galleries, and like basically your journey.
Yeah, well, he doesn't need to come on the show now that we've given him a full plug. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, man. Well, is there anything that you would like want to talk about, like as we're closing down, but that we haven't really talked about?
Yeah, well, there's a few things, but
go for it. We don't have to wrap up.
Well, no, I think it's like going back to like the thesis thing of like unsolicited advice, where it's like something I wish people had told me when I was graduating was just like, learn a practical skill, and that'll fund your practice. Yeah, where it's just like, when I was in school, they were telling me to like look for art jobs type of thing, and I was just limited to that. And I got really lucky, I stumbled upon like art handling, but you don't have to do that. You can get a job like.
And art handling is like the best paying of the art jobs.
Yeah, and then you got to do it for a long time before you start getting like paid well.
And then your body starts to go, and then you're an old person that's tired all the time.
Yeah, that's me. I'm getting tired.
No, trust me. I've done the retail. I just bought a bunch of shoes because I've been doing the work from home thing, and I'm looking at them like, these are the first sets of shoes that aren't going to be destroyed by being on my feet all day.
I'm looking forward to the day.
It took a lot of fucking work.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, and like I told you already, my job is being replaced by AI. I'm like, I'm literally doing.
Like, oh God, it's creeping in.
Yeah,
it's happening now. I mean, I've seen the technology. It's insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, learn a practical skill. It doesn't have to deal with art. It'll pay your practice, right? And they told me to get a studio, right? And there's pros and cons about that. You don't need one right away. Don't kill yourself trying to keep a studio. Mm-hmm. There's going to be an awkward time after you graduate where you're just like, what am I doing? That's normal.
Oh, yeah.
That's completely normal. I was so like, what do I do?
Many people don't make art after art school for a while just because they're like, they got so in their head about it, and that's a legit thing. I did that. Yeah.
And nobody told me, you know what I mean? So look, it's normal. Like, you're not going to
make They didn't tell you because they took your money, bro.
They did.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? The day I graduated, I got a call from the school. Hi, would you like to donate to? I was like, dude, I literally just walked the stage. I'm not giving you any money. In fact, give me money.
My favorite thing that my alma mater did was after I had lived in LA for like, let's say 5-6 years, they called me to tell me that I had a book that I hadn't returned from the library, and I was like, that's impossible. I don't live in Miami. And then they were like, oh, okay.
Oh, that was easy.
Yeah, I was like, Jesus, damn, bro. If I lived in Miami, they would have been fucking working me for that shit. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But that is a Miami vibe. Yeah.
So learn a practical skill. I think you're going to get to your practice sooner or later. And I think here's one thing I'll say is like, back to what we were saying earlier, don't romanticize it if you can. You know what I mean? It's really easy to fall into the trap of like, I got to live this certain type of lifestyle and be in order to be noticed kind of thing. I think the best advice is probably focus on the work, because then if the work is good, people will notice it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like going out and showing up. Yeah, because it's like, it's one of those things we were talking about earlier too. Is like you understand, you can intuit like a good piece of work where you're just like, wow, this is beautiful. I want to see more of that. You know what I mean? So it's like,
and then people will just start thinking about it, and then making connections, and then somehow you end up in a show somehow, or someone hears about a theme of a show, and then like, oh, you need to do a studio visit with this person, and blah blah blah. Yeah, no, it's definitely this art scene is like, I mean, right now I'm just burnt out because it happens, you work it really hard, and then you're like, so. That would be my addition to the advice is like, if you get burnt out, you've been working. Yeah. Like, don't chastise yourself.
Exactly.
Don't be like,
people are really hard on themselves.
Yeah. I've been trying to deprogram a lot of that, like, feeling of like having to be productive as much as I can, like it takes work.
I think Jerry Saltz like recently posted like something about like making the work and like the advice, whatever. I think it's solid advice. The only thing I disagree with is the whole work part.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's not about like, it probably will help long term, but at what cost? That's what I'm gonna say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At what cost?
Well, one of the things that like Rashid was saying was that like first and foremost, he has a life, right? Like your art practice is probably gonna be a small fraction of your entire existence.
Yeah.
And you draw from the other part, like the part that you're not in the studio.
Right.
Otherwise, you make art about art, which can be interesting, but
yeah,
not not necessarily everybody should be making the same art about art stuff. You should make it if that's what you want to make.
yeah. And also, I think the last thing I'll say is like it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
It's a very like once you like start looking at things in terms of like decades, you'll realize that whatever you were doing post like undergrad or like post MFA, you're just like, because you're at the time you're so into it, you're so in it, you're just like, this is my work. You got another 30 years to make.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like it's a marathon. Pace yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
That's my philosophy, I think.
How much time do you spend in the studio?
I'm these days it's pretty intense because I'm working pretty intensely, but I try to be there every day.
Every day.
Yeah. Even though I may not be making, like spending time in the studio is important, and it's like showing up definitely helps. But I try to be there every day, whether I'm making or not. And it's just like because some days it'll be like I'll finish like 5-10 pieces, like drawings, and some days I just won't do anything. It averages out.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, man. I don't know. I'm currently in the situation where I live in the space that I work in. Yeah. Literally, I do everything. I make art here, and now I interview people here. But yeah, like it is an interesting thing how you can compartmentalize your life even within one space, and have boundaries with like this is what I'm doing now. Although sometimes my boundaries are like. I'm going to play some video games while this dries.
It's a healthy boundary, I will say.
Yeah, it works better when I'm playing like Apex Legends, a first-person shooter. Uh-huh. When I'm playing like the Civ 6, which is like world domination game, which is like a world map. I get sucked into that, and I'm like, oh, just a few more decisions, and then sometimes I'll like get to a point where like I know that I'm not gonna be able to win, and I'll just restart it, but I'm still like on the momentum of the last game of like, no, I know what I gotta do this time. I need more science and more culture so that I can get, But yeah, but also like, brain damage time is good sometimes.
Yeah, it's just like veg out, dude.
Yeah, veg out.
Vegging out is good.
Yeah, I've been watching
in moderation. Yeah,
in moderation. Yeah, it depends. It depends what's going on around you. Like don't flake on your responsibilities. But if you got nothing to do, vegging out is fucking blissful. Cool, man. Anything that we can promote for you?
Yeah, so I got a show coming up August 19th in Long Beach. It's a Moonson Gallery. It'll be my first solo show with them.
Oh, cool! Congrats.
So I'll be showing all the work that I'm talking about.
19th,
the 19th in a couple weeks. So y'all can pull up.
Long Beach,
Cambodia town. I'm gonna be doing an all-day opening. There's 12 to 8 or 9. I haven't decided yet, but it'll be like just come on down. I'll be there. Talk about the work. All new work. I haven't really been sharing a lot, so
cool, man. Cool. Yeah. And then what's your Instagram?
It's Joshy Bear, JOSHYBEHR.
Do you go by Joshy or did like?
I don't really like. I'm not opposed to it, but most people call me Josh. But every now and then they'll be like Joshy. I'm like, yo, what's that?
Well, no. The only reason it occurred to me to even ask is because it says I know you as Josh, but but Joshy is there's something to it that is cute and cuddly.
Yeah, that's more welcoming.
Yeah, it takes a bit of the edge that you have from growing up on these streets.
Definitely, yeah.
All right, man. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Having me. Oh no,
yeah, this is fun. And we'll be back next week with another guest and another topic that may or may not be art related. We'll see you then.